All right, let's jump right into the dark, eerie pages of this regional folklore and unpack the anatomy of a classic village horror story. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to take a really fascinating look at a piece of traditional storytelling that's been passed down through the generations, detailing a truly terrifying supernatural encounter. And this narrative isn't just designed to give you goosebumps. It actually serves as a cultural window into village life, their survival instincts, and what happens when modern skepticism collides head-on with ancient local warnings.
Picture this. You wake up in the dead of night and you hear these exact, chilling words echoing from your own pitch-black kitchen. This haunting plea wasn't spoken by some random stranger, but by a family member, or, well, at least the body of a family member. It sets an incredibly eerie tone right off the bat, showing us immediately that the real threat in this folklore isn't lurking out in the woods somewhere, it's actually been invited directly into the home.
So how exactly does a simple, happy visit to the in-laws spiral into a full-blown supernatural nightmare? Well, we are going to trace the exact steps that led a deeply skeptical outsider straight into the jaws of a local legend. The story centers around a guy named Shivlal. He's visiting his wife Gauri's village for the very first time since they got married. He's welcomed with open arms, right? A massive feast of rice, dal, and fish, plus all the warm hospitality of his father-in-law. It should be a completely joyous occasion, but instead it devolves into an absolute nightmare. Why? Because of a fatal flaw that is super common in these kinds of cautionary tales: absolute stubborn arrogance.
All right, let's get into Act 1, the setup and the ignored warnings.
This right here perfectly illustrates the core conflict of our story. We have Shivlal's modern, almost dismissive skepticism crashing right into the village's deep-rooted survival protocols. Shivlal flat-out rejects the very idea of ghosts. When he's confronted with local customs, he just laughs them off. It's a dangerous mindset, and honestly, you still see it today when people travel and completely ignore local norms. But for the villagers, these aren't just silly campfire stories. They are absolutely crucial survival protocols. They share this deep, communal fear of the dark and a very specific, targeted dread of a local banyan tree. The whole village basically operates on a collective agreement to respect the unknown, and it's an agreement Shivlal completely ignores.
The folklore is actually really specific here, laying out 3 distinct opportunities for our protagonist to just turn back. First, there's a warning from the local shopkeeper to get indoors before dark. Then, a chilling story from his own wife about the entity living in that banyan tree. And finally, an explicit, totally unambiguous order from his father-in-law to return from his outing before sunset. 3. Notice the classic folklore rule of 3 at play here. 3 distinct chances to avoid fate, and 3 warnings completely ignored. I mean, it takes a staggering amount of stubbornness to just brush off 3 separate, terrified locals. In traditional storytelling, the second that 3rd warning is cast aside, the audience knows immediately that the protagonist's fate is completely sealed. The supernatural consequence, it's now totally unavoidable.
Which brings us to Act 2, the transgression and the possession.
If we track his movements chronologically throughout the day, we can literally pinpoint the exact moment he crossed from safety into pure danger. First, he overstays at his friend's house. By dusk, he casually walks past the local shop, actually refusing an escort or even a simple lantern from the shopkeeper, arrogantly claiming, "Oh, it's not dark yet." He walks right past that haunted banyan tree, totally alone in the fading light. And by the time he finally arrives back at his in-laws, you can tell the shift has already happened. He's completely unresponsive, eerily silent, and just heads straight to bed.
Now the pacing really slows down here as the eerie, suffocating reality of the night sets in. Gauri discovers an empty bed. It's super late. The house is completely dark. Gauri wakes up to these strange, unsettling, wet sounds coming from the kitchen. She reaches over, and her husband is gone. That initial spike of just normal domestic panic, it very quickly morphs into pure dread.
So where did Shivlal go in the middle of the night? Gauri is way too terrified to go investigate by herself, so she frantically wakes her father and brother. Together, they slowly creep toward the back of the pitch-black house, following the sounds of tearing and chewing. And what they find is literally the stuff of nightmares. The man in the kitchen? It was no longer Shivlal. The father pushes the door open to find him sitting right there on the floor, viciously tearing into raw animal meat and crunching on actual bones. When he looks up, his whole demeanor is entirely inhuman, and he speaks those haunting words, "Mother, I am very hungry. I need more." The folklore uses this incredibly shocking imagery of raw meat consumption to visually smack the audience with the fact that he has experienced a total loss of humanity.
Let's move into Act 3, the exorcism and cultural superstitions. The second the father-in-law realizes what's happened, he locks the entity inside the kitchen so he can go get help. But remember, he has to walk through the dark village to do it. So what does he do? He takes an iron knife with him. This is because of a deeply held cultural superstition that carrying iron actively prevents malicious spirits from approaching you in the dark. In this context, it's not a weapon at all. It's used as a traditional mystical shield.
He makes a mad dash straight to Dharmu Datta, the local Oja. Now, an Oja isn't just a village doctor. They are literally the community's first line of defense against the supernatural. They step in when modern logic completely fails. And Dharmu, he resolutely declares that he is going to force this ghost out of the son-in-law's body that very night. No hesitation.
Dharmu Dharma marches right back to the house, throws open that kitchen door, and physically confronts the possessed Shivlaw, who is now presenting as this terrifying, shadowy apparition. But Dharmu Datta doesn't even flinch. He just directly interrogates it, demanding, "Who are you? Where do you live? Why are you here?"
But the entity? It's completely defiant. It refuses to answer. It openly mocks Dharma Datta and claims it's going to keep Shivlaw's body permanently. This standoff is incredible because it represents the ultimate clash in the story, an invasive, chaotic supernatural force going toe-to-toe with fiercely protective local tradition. What's really fascinating here is how the folklore doesn't feature some big, Hollywood-style physical brawl. Instead, Dharmu Datta relies strictly on local mystical knowledge. Chanting a powerful silent mantra, he forcefully throws a specific enchanted object right at the apparition. It's a swift, aggressive counterattack rooted 100% in their traditional practices.
And bam! The moment that enchanted object strikes, the horrifying illusion just shatters. The ghostly apparition vanishes into thin air, and Shivlaw instantly collapses to the floor, totally unconscious. Just like that, the immediate, terrifying threat is extinguished.
Now Shivlaw might be safe for the moment, but the Oja knows a spiritual door has essentially been kicked open. So he instructs the family to bring Shivlaw to his house the very next day. Why? So he can craft a maduli. This is a highly specialized, wearable amulet designed specifically to physically block that spirit from ever re-entering his body.
And finally, we arrive at the aftermath, an unresolved threat.
So Shivlaw, who is now thoroughly stripped of all his previous arrogance, basically packs up and leaves the village the second he recovers. But for the village itself, the nightmare isn't over. The elders hold a serious meeting because they realize the spirit was only banished from Shivlaw's body, not actually destroyed. So they enact a strict village-wide curfew. And this right here is the true sociological purpose of this folklore. It uses a terrifying narrative to highly effectively enforce community safety rules, keep people safely indoors after dark, and maintain a very healthy respect for their local environment. But here's the real kicker. The folklore deliberately ends on this incredibly tense, completely open-ended note. The threat is still out there, just waiting in the branches of that old banyan tree. It serves as a permanent, chilling reminder to the listeners: always respect local customs, have a healthy fear of the dark, and never ever let your own arrogance lead you down an unlit path. Because you have to wonder, if another skeptical outsider walks past that tree at dusk, will they be as lucky as Shivlaw? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, maybe keep your lights on tonight.